Hello and welcome back to the channel. Now don't worry, I'm not becoming a sovsit, but the other week I stumbled upon a guy who appears to be taking a leap headfirst down the rabbit hole without fact checking any claims whatsoever. This is Cameron. He set up his YouTube channel to upload some travel videos from some holidays he's been on. Nothing weird there, good wholesome stuff. But 8 months ago his channel pivoted. Pivot! And he posted this.
Alright, what's up guys? Just applied for a new passport as a non-citizen national, which is going to be one of the first big steps in correcting my status from U.S. citizen to a non-citizen national. We are also filing some other paperwork here, and I will show you some of that. I'm going to be going back into the post office, which is where we did the passport application, and sending some registered mail to my county clerk and recorder's office. On the back of the envelope here, I've written, "Please file the documents inside this envelope onto the public record pursuant to Federal Rules of Civil Procedures 5D4, which is acceptance by the clerk, and 18 U.S.C. 2071.
68250? But sir, surely that's impossible without at least one live chicken and a rabbi.
The legal ramifications if a clerk does not file your documentation. And then I signed without prejudice by myself, the beneficiary of the United States. Hopefully you can see some of that. And then I wanted to go through the documents that we are actually filing here. A live life claim affidavit created by myself, which says that I have been born on the land as a man. Withdrawal of Colorado voter registration. Statement of ownership for some of my personal property. Statement of fact. This is the revocation of election. Certificate of naturalization. An affidavit of truth and honor. This is naturalizing me as a non-citizen national into the Christian Mountain Trust Nation. This is an affidavit that I created for fee schedule, affidavit of copyright notice and record of ownership, my copyright notice to the state that I shall not own all rights to the all caps name, which is going to be pretty cool. Then this is the declaration and foundation of the Christian Mountain Trust Nation. I will lawfully have no tax liability after this is filed, which is going to be pretty cool.
It checks out. He's gone from recording in landscape to ensure the video fills the screen properly to recording in fucking portrait.
Why would you do that?
And while he doesn't sound at all convinced or convincing, he's used plenty of sovsit phrases about putting things on record, an affidavit of honour, becoming a US state national, the all caps name. He even created a fee schedule. None of these are worth the paper they're printed on, but I did manage to fill out an entire sovsit bingo card with this 4-minute video.
Ooh, that's a bingo.
His second video was nearly 20 minutes long and looks to have been recorded at his place of work. Interesting, a sovsit with a proper job. For now, at least. Do you reckon he's been paying his taxes, or trying to fiddle, or even just avoid them completely? Let me know in the comments. Now in this video he explains that he's applied for a US passport as a US national. This sounds like he's using wordplay to effectively lie to his audience. You only wanted to get one thing out of this, a passport as a US national and not as a US citizen. So if you didn't get everything you wanted out of this, you can't really have gotten anything, can you? In other words, the US government refused to create joinder with the script of fuckwittery. Now I could be wrong on this, and if I am, please correct me in the comments, but here it states a US national is A person who owes allegiance to the United States and is entitled to its protection, including US citizens, but also includes individuals who are not citizens but are nationals of the US. Examples of US nationals are individuals born in American Samoa or Swains Island, neither of which are applicable here, and past nationals like those born in Guam, Puerto Rico, the US Virgin Islands, or the Philippines, again, not applicable here. Besides, these past nationals are all now full US citizens anyway, so whichever way you look at it, he's a US citizen. Perhaps this explains why he didn't get what he wanted.
You need to send in an authenticated birth certificate. So that's one reason that I may have gotten a lower amount of stars than I wanted. And the other probably has to do with existing contracts that I still have in place that say U.S. citizen. So Social Security Administration and driver's license are the ones that I really would venture to say that has to do with. So yeah, anyway, that's where that sits right now. I'm fine with the 3-star passport. I don't need much more up until this point, but I'm just like making my way down this path, and so that's kind of where it sits right now. Following up on that video even more, why am I doing this? I wrote some things down here. I submitted several different forms that day to the county clerk and recorder, all serving different purposes. One main reason is to change the effect as to whether the court systems and the federal administrative agencies see me. What I've done is remove myself from their jurisdiction by solidifying the fact that I'm a non-citizen national and not a U.S. citizen. This happened through my filing out of the Department of State's DS-11 form, application for a U.S. passport in a certain way.
Oh, the DS-11. This DS-11? This DS-11, where the very first section explaining what to submit tells you to submit proof of US citizenship. It also states that false statements made knowingly and willingly in passport applications, including affidavits or other documents submitted to support this application, are punishable by fine and/or imprisonment under US law, including the provisions of 18 U.S.C. 1001, 18 U.S.C. 1542, and/or 18 U.S.C. 1621. So this is a risky move for a novice.
On my explanatory statement, I talked about how I have created my own nation within my trust, not the SSK Trust, Cameron Allen Prickett, but another private trust that I've created.
What? Your own nation? No, you haven't. If you had, you wouldn't need a US national passport. You could just issue yourself a Cameron Land passport and see how well that works at immigration.
Yeah, I submitted that application and filed onto the public record documents claiming to be a non-citizen national. Through the Administrative Procedures Act of 1946, the receiving party has 45 days to rebut any claims or statements made in the document or affidavits. Otherwise, the claim stands as truth in law and commerce.
Why? That act doesn't seem at all appropriate here. This act governs the process by which federal agencies develop and issue regulations. It includes requirements for publishing notices of proposed and final rulemaking in the Federal Register, and provides opportunities for the public to comment on notices of proposed rulemaking. The APA requires most rules to have a 30-day delayed effective date. In addition to setting forth rulemaking procedures, the APA addresses other agency actions, such as issuance of policy statements, licenses, and permits. It also provides standards for judicial review if a person has been adversely affected or aggrieved by an agency action. No mention of, if you make a baseless claim and we don't call you a moron within 45 days, you can do whatever the fuck you want. No mention of 45 days, no mention of a rebuttal period at all. It's as though someone just made it up, and poor Cameron just believed it without bothering to check. Well, I declare that Cameron is gullible and foolish for falling for this nonsense, and as per the Civil Rights Act of 1866, Cameron has 28 days to rebut this video, or it stands as truth in law and commerce.
In the original video, I mentioned that I'd be removing myself from having any tax liability as well. And I wanted to go over some case law and legal citations to verify that claim.
Oh, great. Not content with misreading the passport form, not content with misquoting acts, now you want to stop paying tax based on more misread and misquoted case law. This should be fun.
It was said in a court case, unless the defendant can prove he is not a U.S. citizen of the United States, the IRS has the right to inquire and determine a tax liability. U.S. versus Slater, 545, Federal, imagine Supplemental Papers, 179, 182. And that court case was from 1982.
Well, it's an awful start. Mate, come on. Your very first citation here proves that you should still be paying tax because you cannot prove that you're not a US citizen. And why can't you prove it? Because you are a US citizen, and Cameron land only exists in your head.
On top of that, a statement from a U.S. Treasury Disclosure Officer, Cynthia J. Millis, she said, the IRC, which is the Internal Revenue Code, is not positive law. It is a special law applicable to specific persons in the United States who choose to make themselves subject to the requirements of special laws in the IRC by entering into an employment agreement with the U.S. government. So you're like, okay, well, I don't work for the U.S. government. Well, in law, you may. Actually, you may not be a federal employee in Washington, D.C., but we'll just review some other laws that may say you are.
Bollocks! 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 Oh, bollocks. Bollocks! 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 Bollocks!
A quick online search returned this letter, purportedly written by Cynthia Mills, containing the exact quote cited by Cameron. But spending an extra minute or so to attempt to try and verify this returned this page, where some guy reviews a really poor quality copy of the letter. But what I found particularly interesting on this page was the last update. While it's been confirmed that Cynthia Mills does exist, and does, or at least did at the time, work at the Philadelphia Service Center, she denied, under oath in court, that she wrote the letter. She further testified that the IRS believes the letter to have been written by a different officer who had become disenchanted with its activities. Based on this, I wouldn't be citing this document or pinning my hopes of an already debunked script on it.
29 U.S. Code, subsection 630F.
29 U.S.C. 630. Are you sure you want to cite this? It relates to age discrimination laws, not general employment law.
This is the kicker right here. The term employee includes an individual who is a citizen of the United States employed by an employer in a workplace in a foreign country. Well, you say, well, I'm not in a foreign country.
But you said you are, remember? You created your own nation. Make your mind up.
Quote, United States means a federal corporation, an agency, department, commission, board, or other entity of the United States, or an instrumentality of the United States. So you say, well, how do I live in a federal corporation? It's a great question.
Mate, it's your question to yourself. Hey, Elle, how do you stay so handsome? Oh, that's a great question, Elle.
So the United States is a person. How can can you be a person inside of a person unless you're a child in a womb? Vessel, as including all means of water transportation. If you're in a womb, you're in water.
The womb. No mention of road boats or birth certificates being birth certificates, though.
That was written by someone else. He copied this definition off of a guy's website, Brandon Joe Williams. You'll have to check him out. He is on top of it with all this information. Thanks, Brandon. You're killing it.
Oh no, not that con man. Really? No, mate, he isn't on top of it with all this information. He's a grifter, a con man, a total fraud. He's the Eric Dubay of Sovsits. I notice as well, someone else copied that phrase off some guy's website. So if some guy is Brandon Joe the Fraud Williams, and your guru copied his script from there, does this not scream pyramid scheme to you? It's suspiciously like every other shitty conspiracy grift.
Some case law. Maybe if you've gone through the Constitution or know the preamble to the Constitution, right there at the beginning it says, "We the people." Well, quote unquote, the people does not include U.S. citizens, from a case Barron versus Mayor and City Council of Baltimore.
Bollocks!
Another false claim. This case had nothing to do with citizenship or who the people are. It was about whether the Bill of Rights applied to state governments, after a wharf owner sued the city under the Fifth Amendment's Takings Clause, arguing that the city ruined his business without compensation. The Supreme Court ruled that the Bill of Rights only restricted federal power, not state power. If you want to cite case law around this, perhaps try US versus Verdugo Urquidez, 1990. Probably butchered that pronunciation. I apologise. This was a case where a Mexican citizen was arrested in Mexico by US and Mexican authorities on suspicion of drug trafficking. After his arrest, US agents searched his home in Mexico without a US warrant, which, he argued, was a violation of the Fourth Amendment, which protects against unreasonable searches and seizures. The question was whether this applies to a non-US citizen living outside the US, and the Supreme Court ruled that it did not apply. The court also ruled that the people, as it appears in multiple amendments within the Constitution, refers to those who are part of the national community of United States citizens and lawful residents. So yes, the people does include US citizens.
Alright, more case law. A, quote, citizen of the United States, end quote, is a civilly dead entity. Interesting. Alright, so that's from the Congressional Record, June 13th, 1967. Congress said that.
Bollocks!
Oh mate, seriously? This one is a made-up quote. It doesn't exist. There is no such statement in the Congressional Record of the 13th of June 1967, nor has Congress ever declared that a US citizen is a civilly dead entity. The real Congressional Record for those pages on that date discusses debates on a consular convention between the US and the Soviet Union. Here's the record in question. Let's search it, shall we? As you can see, my browser can search the text, but oh look, 0 results for civilly, 0 results for dead, and 0 results for entity. You might want to think twice about checking out Brandon Joe the Conman Williams now, don't you think? Cameron, mate, I say this with love. Stop taking these people's word for it. I've just shown this entire thing to be nothing but bollocks, and you've just blindly accepted everything so far. You're going to ruin your life if you carry on down this path. Just watch some YouTube videos of Sovsits in court.
Another quote from a case. Therefore, the U.S. citizens residing in one of the states of the Union are classified as property and franchises of the federal government as an individual entity. It says right there, if you're a U.S. citizen residing in one of the states of the Union, you're classified as property in franchise of the federal government as an individual entity. It's not very flattering, is it?
Bollocks!
This case has nothing to do with US citizens being classified as property and franchise. It was a case about whether West Virginia could tax a foreign corporation's intangible property, like accounts receivable, when that property was used within the state. It contains one usage of the word franchise, and as you can see, it has sod all to do with how citizens are classified. Yet another completely made up citation that's just been accepted as true without any scrutiny.
A citizen of the United States is a citizen of the federal government.
More bullshit. Kitchens filed a lawsuit against a Texas prison officer, claiming that his rights were violated under the Civil Rights Act of 1983. The issue was whether a prisoner could assert his constitutional rights against state actions. As you'll no doubt expect, this is yet another irrelevant case, and while the quote does appear in there, it's conveniently misquoted and misapplied.
Here's another quote from another case. The term, quote, citizen, end quote, in the United States is analogous to the term subject in common law. The change of the phrase has resulted from the change in government. So when did the government change? Back in 1871, I believe, is when the second Constitution was written by the United States Corporation.
Well, folks, Mama's wrong again.
This one was a case regarding self-defense and whether the defendant's actions were justified under North Carolina law. It did not address citizenship or the relation between citizens and the government whatsoever. The government change it refers to is the change from a British monarchy to the establishment of a republic, not this corporation de facto government bollocks you've been fed. In his next video, Cameron shows us how to write a load of bollocks all over a bill and claim it no longer has to be paid. Here he's used ChatGPT, yes, that's how you pronounce it, which, as we know, is not a great source of credible information, given that it fills in blanks in its knowledge with assumptions and can often misread instructions, giving completely false information by response. This is all starting to sound very similar to Richard Vobes and his shitty promissory notes grift, isn't it? A lot of these conspiracy-based grifts seem to intertwine and cross over each other, and perhaps this explains how so many of them just blanketly believe any conspiracy claim they hear, as long as it comes from and targets the right people or entities. And again, just to point out some more lack of attention to detail, he reads this page but completely misses that this is endorsement when presented by banks, and covers US bearer securities like Treasury bonds, Treasury notes and Treasury certificates, not bills for furniture you purchased on credit but don't intend to pay for, which could constitute fraud on your part. Think about that. Some random bloke gives you a document he copied from some other random bloke's website, which claims you can use these words to get out of just not having to pay for stuff. But rather than check any of the cited case law examples, the quoted letters, the acts, or the commercial codes, you just stop paying things and potentially commit fraud. On the say-so of this guy. This guy. Cameron's last video was uploaded on the 6th of July 2024, and is just the second half of this third video repeated.
And like that, he's gone.
Has he gone further down the rabbit hole? Has he been arrested for travelling by roadboat on public roads with no licence, registration or insurance? Has his sofa been repossessed? Has he finally bothered to verify the script and given up on it? Has he been abroad on his Cameronish passport? Or is he still really just living as a US citizen? Well, you'll have to wait for part 2, but in the meantime, feel free to speculate in the comments. First correct guess wins a prize. And, in Cameron's own words,
Hit the like button, maybe even subscribe, smash those buttons.
Until next time, cheers.